the people are getting ready for a big journey. They've already traveled. They traveled from Egypt to Mount Sinai. But this is different. They, at Mount Sinai, have encountered God. Riveting, life-changing. And now they're told, leave Mount Sinai. Not easy to do. For in this moment, they have been honored to feel a community close to God. How can they leave God? Why should they leave? What's the plan? You need a plan. You can't move forward in life without a plan. A big plan. And so, Baha'alotcha, as a continuation of Bamidbar, is preparation. They will make out of the tabernacle a portable Mount Sinai. Like the mountain that was marked by fire before the giving of the word, so there will be fire to guide them in the desert. Like Mount Sinai that had 3 concentric circles, the place that only Moses could go, the top, so there will be a Holy of Holies. There will be a place for the priests, and then there will be a place for the common folks. And yet, plans still need more detail. And so Bamidbar will begin in preparation for this journey through the desert, with taking stock of all the men over the age of 20, those who can fight. It will then talk about how, when they travel, they will encamp. It will describe how they will each have their own flag, a sense of community, identity, as they move forward, and how the tabernacle will be at the center. And at the center of the tabernacle, symbolically, is the menorah. And so in Baha'alotcha, on the cusp of the journey, they're reminded of the menorah as the symbol of the Epiphany, of the menorah with its 7 prongs, as the symbol of who God is in their midst, who created the world in 7 days. And as soon as they begin the journey, which is the 2nd and 3rd triennial, as soon as they begin the journey, everything's going to fall apart. It's only going to be a few days until the people start saying to Moses, you know, so much for this journey. Back in Egypt, we had cucumbers and fish. Why did you take us? And Moses will get upset, and God will get upset. Moses will say, I can't carry this people anymore. God, just kill me. And then it'll only fall apart more when even Miriam and Moses and Aaron will speak ill of Moses and his wife. But that's getting ahead of myself, and that's not my focus. What I want to talk about is that you got to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, it's all going to fall apart in a bigger way. Because the people were reminded before they traveled that they were a community with the light, God at their center, they had a direction. And despite all the unanticipated unraveling that would occur, I like the word they use for the rebels, asaf suf, which gets translated here as rabble. They both are anapoetic, right? Asaf suf, rabble. But I think of saf suf as having the root of sof. These are people with no vision. Sof means end. They are the ones who see the end always in front of them, not only pessimistic, but without a vision beyond the immediate moment. Now, the need for a plan, one more comment in the Torah, and then I'm going to link it to a place you don't see me going, and then I want to have a few reactions. And that is the praise for Aaron. It says of Aaron that he did all that was commanded by Moses in verse 3. I shared in Torah and Tidbits yesterday a Hasidic play that his praise for being constant was the constancy of character. Quoting a Hasidic Rabbi and Rabbi Abe Twersky, that he was praised as Aaron because even though he's now the one who lights the menorah, the man of such supreme importance, he continued to be Ohev Shalom V'Rodev Shalom, concerned with peacemaking among every Israelite. The Vilna Gaon comments here on page 816 regarding this phrase that Aaron did, that he was told that day after day, year after year, Aaron's attitude never changed. His work never became routine or boring. Those are what you would call drash, kind of metaphorical ways of understanding the praise for Aaron. But I understand it first more literally, and this is the bridge. There was a plan of how to light the menorah, and he followed the plan. This week I had a great privilege, which was to do an invocation. I don't do them that often. For Dr. Alan Bernstein, known to many of us from our community, who's now the mayor of Tustin. This was the first time that Alan was given the privilege, or as he's fondly called in the community, Doc, was given the privilege to do the annual State of Tustin address, which is given every year by the mayor. First year he's mayor. And I was honored to be invited to do the invocation. It was held at the old Edwards Theater in Tustin Marketplace, which is now a commercial center. And it was an appropriate setting because his State of Tustin was delivered as a movie with Darth Vader coming to Tustin. It was actually very well done. I was very impressed. Darth Vader coming to Tustin and wanting to do tshuva, wanting to do repair and be liked for being a good guy, and Dr. Bernstein agreeing to take him on as an intern for a month to see if he was trustworthy, and that meant the opportunity, and everybody was in costume in this film, and it was like a film. Everybody was in costume. So what's his name? Kenobi? Kobe Wanobi was Dr. Bernstein, and it would be they'd go in, and so that would include having Darth Vader visit the mayor's offices. So as they would, and everybody in the offices were dressed up in Star Wars costumes, and everybody in the audience, which included many of the office staff, many people. It was a large turnout of other mayors, of the chief of police, of Tustin, of community leaders. And so they would show the offices of all dressed in costume. Everybody was happy to see themselves on the film. And there would also be an opportunity to show Darth Vader, because they were giving him a tour of the city of Tustin and the new plans that there are for the city of Tustin. And there's big things. I was really wowed by the big plans, particularly the developing of the old Marine base is moving forward with groundbreaking. A new STEM 6th through 12th grade school on what those grounds are. Won't be done, if I remember correctly, till 2020. A really major new addition of education to the community. Major new shopping centers and commercial centers and apartments. And I was wowed, and it was, again, very well done. They'd go back and forth with Darth Vader trying to drink from the drinking fountain but couldn't with his mask, or trying to talk on a telephone as he's an intern answering the phone but he couldn't quite hear with the mask. So again, it was very well done, and a reminder that the traffic is going to get a lot thicker. I don't know how many of you noticed how thick the traffic has been getting the last 5 or 10 years. And at this event, a man came up to me. He saw my kippah. He related that he's Jewish and that he's just finished building 3,000 apartments in Irvine and 3,000 apartments he hopes to build in Tustin, and that he lives in Beverly Hills. Now, he seemed like a fine man. I don't know him, and I'm not commenting on him. What I am commenting on is a concern that I have. And the concern that I have is, what's the plan? How does this massive new growth, and I don't know, I share this with you as a concerned citizen in a deep way, in a very deep way. I did say to the city manager who was introducing me for the invocation, you might want to note that I've lived in Tustin for 29 years. I can't believe it's 29 years. And to say that, I'm a long-term resident of the community. And no doubt the community is changing. Some change is good. Some change is not necessarily good. Here's something to know. The word for the place of the rebellion is tiv ra, which means fire. It's the same image as the beginning of the Torah, Bahalotcha, the lighting up. Fire can be used for good or for bad. What's the plan? And here's why I say, what's the plan? It all has to work together. Plato asks this question. Plato says, the Greek, if you are invisible, would you steal? Right? No one would catch you or know. Would you just take what you want? He seems to indicate, he concludes, if you're invisible, you would do what you would want to do. That there is no higher accountability is his concern than a check on your behavior if you were invisible. My mother was very wise. She used to say, everybody does what's best for them. She wasn't a cynic. She was a most positive person. My mother was aware as a businesswoman and as a description of her employees, to whom she would say, some steal more, some steal less. I accept that's reality. That people by nature will do what's best for them. And the nature of business is to make money. That's why you do business. You engage in business to make a profit. If you build apartments, your hope is to make as much money as you can. That doesn't mean that you don't want to have a good reputation. You do, hopefully. If you're building apartments, 3,000 units in Tustin, private funds, you do want to make sure that your reputation is there. But your first goal is to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. I am privileged to say that Ivan Boesky is my friend. He is. I met him at JTS. Ivan Boesky is the one who said greed is good in his address at Stanford Business School. He feels it was misquoted. Probably was. What he wanted to say is that unless people are driven to want theirs, they won't compete. The rabbi said the same thing. The rabbi said about the Yetzer Hara, the Talmud, that the inclination for selfishness got captured and put in a box. And the next day, no eggs were hatched and no homes were built. For the rabbis also seem to indicate, back to fire, that the fire for self-advancement, the fire to stand out from the crowd, the fire to accumulate all you can, to have power and to have security, is necessary to create and to push yourself forward. And yet, it's fire. So the plan. Unless there's a transportation plan thought out in advance that takes into account how many units are going to be built, then what I fear is that decisions will be made out of expediency. that people who are nice to our leaders, and I'm not saying this happened, I'm only expressing a fear. And it's my fear only because it's how I see human nature. And that is, business is in the business of making a profit. Unless we, the citizens, have input in terms of quality of life, what will become the deciding factor is who has the money to create the change. Unless we create with our leaders our goals, I'm talking local, to create the kind of model communities we want, we will not have model communities, we will have sprawl. Irvine, when I moved here in 1988, was considered a model community in the country, one of the 10 most livable cities in Parenting magazine in the 90s because of its master plan. And so I have a concern for Irvine, for Tustin, and that is, what's the plan? Any reactions? And again, just a 3 or 4, and then to pull it together. And there's no reason for it to so Neil says that there is a transportation plan always, and that we have congregants, the Schneiders, Michael and Sharon, who are world-class transportation planners, not world-class, world-engaged transportation planners, including locally, and that there is a transportation plan. You can't, every city is required to have it. And in that sense, there is always a plan. It's always integrated. Jody? So Jody shares that some leaders have an orientation that business is good for their community and business needs to be made the priority. And the concern locally is that transportation is getting thicker. They widen the 55 freeway. Good luck for much of the day. They widen Tustin Ranch Road to become Von Carmen. If you look at, I just drove yesterday down Von Carmen and Tustin Ranch Road at the new apartment buildings going up to go on the Von Carmen side. They are massive, 6 stories, dense. The amount of cars that will be filling up our streets in the next 5 years is greater than the last 5 years to now. Michael? So the concern is, I'm looking at transportation not just as transportation, but as only kind of a visible, concrete example that we're all aware of in terms of planning and quality of life, in terms of what is the plan and the trajectory. And what Michael attests to is that the traffic is significantly worse, and the amount of construction about to go up and going up is significantly increased. Al? And we'll just take, this is obviously touching a nerve because there's like 3-4 hands up now. And this isn't, again, a community meeting per se, but it is churning within me as an awareness. Al? So they actually reduced the plan due to people complaining, obviously, about it. And that's the piece that I'm most aware of, is that business has an agenda, and it can provide benefits, but it's largely profit motivated. And that unless people, see, here's the problem. You know, I was with Linda when we were going yesterday down it, and she said, well, I wonder if more people aren't complaining about all this new construction. Go down Jamboree and Von Carmen, it's just all construction at the moment. Cranes everywhere. And the problem is, because we're a new area, you see the problem, there was even a word for it, which is NIMBY. Learned about it years ago in law school, you know, the problem of not in my backyard, where they would say that there needs, because of zoning, to create a prison or a care facility for the elderly, and local neighbors would protest and say, not in my backyard. Okay, I think it's a good thing in theory, but not in my yard. But the problem here is these are areas that haven't been developed yet, like the Marine base. In my sense, the only ones looking are the city council and the developers. That we're not looking at the plans and where it's going because it's not our backyard. And we're just watching, and the only place we really see it on the immediate level is when we're driving in traffic. But we're not asking the question that's more than that. And that is, what's happening with the great park? Is this Balboa Park of San Diego, or is it a big baseball field, which is better for the developers because it's more land for them to develop? Is there a vision for quality of life for our community that's really being taken seriously as a neighborhood, as a community? And as a long-term resident, this change is the last 5, since the recession, 2008. Things have started to pick up, and what's happening now, and I'm going to pull it together. I see a lot of hands, which is better for me, but I'm also committed to my leadership to end services around noon. And it's 10 till. And that is, I challenge all of us, and I don't know really what it means, to, if we're invested as citizens on the local level, to take into our focus what is the quality of life that we would want our area to have. What is the plan? Clearly there needs to be, and there are plans, but are they the plans that balance the needs for the people who live here with the needs of business to make a dollar? There's nothing wrong with business. I am a capitalist. But if there isn't a check on the drive to accumulate, then selfishness and greed win. It needs to be in balance in order for the dollars to be used in ways that are balanced with making a profit in terms of meeting the needs of the community also. In our Torah reading, to pull this together, there was a plan because they knew that it was going to be difficult to move the people through an unknown for the next number of years. Planning was done and things did fall apart, and yet the plan kept people on track with the menorah at the center, a reminder that pursuing God's light was the goal, rather than the asafsuf, those who were the rabble, only responding to the immediate needs of their stomach. Ribbon Shalom, Master of the universe, may we be guided by your light to a greater vision of quality of life that takes into account diversity and commonality. Amen.